broken, beat, and scarred. That signifies us. That signifies you here on Warchant TV in the chat. It signifies the people in the stands who, hey, man, that building was more full than I thought it was going to be on a Saturday against North Carolina. It signifies the players on the sideline and certainly a head coach who is now searching after an effort that looks unlike any other effort so far in 2024, meaning we laid down this evening on Bobby Bowden Field. Florida State laid down. I said earlier in the week that Omarion Hampton for North Carolina would be truth serum to see how invested Florida State was in showing up and playing hard today. At present, the numbers are still running. 35 touches for 265 yards. 265 yards on 35 touches for Omarion Hampton. What's the truth? We're done. Season's done. In the minds and the hearts of our players, the season is done.
Well, going through the motions is an understatement, Tom. There are a lot of examples of it, but a little shuttle pass there on 3rd and long in which he runs whatever he runs for there, 50, 60 yards, whatever it was, just kind of pretending to be interested. I thought that summarized much of today. I had my notes early in the game, and it didn't take me long. I got down here to the bottom. This is early in the first half. I wrote, we're not competing. There are plays in which nobody is trying. Now, they weren't all the plays, Tom, but they were a lot of plays. I called it, I told you, I think at one point when we talked off the air before we came on, I said they're pretending to play football. Because what you're doing in that situation is you understand that the eye in the sky is still there. So you know that the cameras are running, that the video is being filmed. And you can't just completely quit. You have to pretend like you're trying. And I thought Florida State was pretending quite a bit today, even early on. I know the first couple of drives, maybe that's not true. Maybe they were competing. They're up 3-0. But they were pretending to compete for much of the second quarter, and then they've been pretending to compete. Really, the only reason that there's a momentary lapse, I believe we could have come on in the third quarter if it wasn't for Collins, the defensive coordinator for North Carolina, going man press, zero coverage back end on 3rd and 4, which allows you to throw basically a go and a fade, however you want to call it. Just throw it up and hope your receiver gets behind the DB, which he did. If they don't do that, if they are not in zero coverage on the back end, you don't score, and you got, at that point you'd have 3 points because you get the 2-point conversion. So yeah, I don't know, man. I've never said that Mike's lost the locker room. Mike's lost the locker room. He's lost the locker room. They're done. They're not competing. When you don't compete, I suppose you could lose to anybody. I didn't believe it would be possible to lose to Charleston Southern, for example, but I'm not sure anymore. They're not competing, so that's what this is. It's the ugliest and saddest of things to watch.
Yeah, Charleston Southern is also a one-win team, for reference, at the beginning of today. I don't know what they're doing right now. That's a group that's going to get on a flight, come down here, get on the bus, come to the stadium, and believe. And the questions we're going to get to in a minute, and the calls we're going to take, they're going to be on the fundamental level, buddy. They're going to be, can this stand? 65 million be damned. Can it stand?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. The money people will have to answer that. I think what you're seeing right now is fireable. I think that you could, if all things were equal, you could fire your coach here, but they're not. So I don't know that you can. I know that there was a time when the money wasn't so great that I used to say that if you witnessed a team quit, if you knew they were quitting, you could never bring that coach back. But the world's changed and the money has changed. And I don't know that it's that simple anymore. In fact, I know it's not that simple anymore. But the reality is he's lost his team. Losing begets losing. And so even if he's not lost his fight, his team has. And so you're really in an untenable situation. I use that phrase a lot, but they are in an untenable situation. I don't know. This is on display, and when you watch this, it's ugly. It's very difficult to stomach. If you're a Florida State fan, you're right to just be irate. I think that logically, Tom, I would tell you that this was inevitable. as the losses mounted. I don't know that I've ever seen any team, anywhere, lose as much as this team is losing and not at some point show some laydown. I've seen it, in the NFL where guys are paid and every one of their clips could cost them money and their livelihood. You will still see teams quit. You will still see human nature kick in, and teams will lose their ability to fight at some point. If you're in the midst of a 2-12 season, for example, and you're down 21-0, if you're watching that game, you might see a team quit, and there are ramifications for that. Typically, a coach is fired, etc. They're not going to be able to fire Mike Norvell. I think he's got to fire pretty much everybody around him. I think he's got to go back to the drawing board. I think this program is in trouble. I think that there's a lot to really kind of wrap your brain around tonight. It's very, very difficult.
Here's how crazy it is and unprecedented. You'd won 19 in a row, 23 out of 26. So that is dominance. No matter how you slice it, don't care what the schedule is. That's dominance. You have a conference championship. You beat several named programs, including LSU a couple of times, Oklahoma, Miami, and Florida on the regular to win 19 in a row and 23 out of 26. He's won once. This program has won once out of their last 10 football games, if you include the exhibition farce last year in the Orange Bowl. But 1 out of 10. I mean, that's as stark. 19 in a row to 1 out of 10. That is unbelievable. But that's where we're living right now. And Troy Noel, he's a similar age to you, and that's one of our guys. Hi, Troy Noel. He says, worst Noles team I've seen, and I'm 51. It's got to be the same for you, buddy. You've been coming to games for 40-odd years.
Yeah, I'm 53 years old. I began to start to go to games with my dad in 1980. So, yeah, that's correct. I can't believe how long I've been going to games. But, I don't really recall anything quite this ugly. If you especially go back to my time in the early 90s in school, I certainly never saw a day where we could be like this. I mean, the lost decade was something that was tough to stomach because it not only meant that you were losing a legend and the game had passed him by. And at that time, I began to have a career in media, and I remember hating having to give that opinion, knowing that there would be pushback, et cetera, but also knowing that I was paid to give an opinion. So what are you going to do? You're not going to make everybody happy when you do that. But at that time, Tom, we were talking about what later became the lost decade, quote unquote. We were talking about 6-6 seasons.
Yep.
We were talking about 7-5 seasons where you weren't getting the most out of your talent, and there were in-game moments that made you realize the coach wasn't as sharp as he once was, and it made you sad. And then, of course, the nepotism stuff. And these were the debates we were having at the time. This is very different. This is even different, by the way, at least this particular season is even different than what we had at the end of the Jimbo run and the beginning of the Willie run. This is worse than both of those. And I thought there were a lot of questionable things that were happening at the end of Jimbo's time and certainly in Willie's time. But Mike now has somehow usurped those moments, and here we sit.